Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back. This is Take It to the Hizzy, Fantasy Football, TITTH number 209. I'm your host, Justin Bruni. I got my co-host, Stephen Hammond, with me this evening. Happy Monday, sir. How are we doing?
What's going on? We had a solid Sunday. We did see a lot of big names go down, but overall a solid Sunday and a decent game on Monday.
Yeah, it's a pretty good matchup. I can't complain. Assuming that this matchup tonight will be better than Sunday Night Football with the Browns and the Ravens. That was a kind of a stink fest, but we both made money, so that was good. That was good. How was the rest of the week though? Like your highs and lows of week 12?
Highs, Leonard Fournette, that 4 touchdown performance, that was huge. Especially in a week where I had Christian McCaffrey. He went out early and now he's going to be out for the season. So it's good to see that. Cam Newton started him in 2-3 leagues, I want to say, because a lot of my guys are Kyler. So just filling in there, and he set up a absolute shit show.
Who, Cam?
Yeah.
Well, it's not as bad as Ben Roethlisberger, or maybe it was. I don't know.
Yeah, fair.
I had Ben. I'm going to lose in that league. I had to start him. I had Kyler, off, so that sucked. Hopefully he gets back. We're going to be talking some Kyler and D-Hop at the back end of the show, talking some fantasy playoffs, some trust or bust. So, yeah, hopefully those guys can get ironed out soon. My highs, Aaron Rodgers, pretty solid. Pretty big week for Aaron Rodgers for missing a toe or broken toe, whatever it is. Myles Gaskin, that was awesome. Thank you, Myles Gaskin. Finally got it done on an even week, so that was good. Couple of touchdowns, which is great because I was worried about Phillip Lindsay. He got 12 carries in that game, so I'm glad that he was able to kind of hold him off, especially in the red zone where you'd think Lindsay might have some more value. But Josh Allen too. Josh Allen, pretty productive week in comparison, to the rest of his production this season. Lows, Marquise Goodwin, I guess. I mean, he put up a goose egg, but I'm going at least 2-1 with him in my lineups. Potentially 3-0 with him in my lineup if DJ Dallas can hold off Tyler Heineke tonight with a 9-point lead. To be fair, got a 9-point lead in that one. Other lows, there's quite a few. I mean, Des Fitzpatrick, Tyler Higbee, Jerry Jeudy, Jamison Crowder, 1 catch, 1 target. Zach Wilson, come on, come, what are you doing? Come on. And then, Dalvin Cook getting hurt. It doesn't sound like it's that bad. I just saw on the bottom line, like day to day with a separated shoulder, dislocated shoulder. Man, guy's got great shoulders. And then betting, Panthers, Texans, the Colts. What are you doing? You had it. You had them. It was driving me nuts. It was one of my favorite picks of Sunday was the Colts. Had a 10-point lead, couldn't get it done. Kind of embarrassing, to be honest with you. All right, let's jump into some of tonight's action. What are your best props for tonight? Best player props.
So I got first one, Curtis Samuel under 24.5 receiving yards. We've already heard Ron Rivera come out, say he's going to be on a snap count. And sometimes you get lucky, and if he leaves the game early for any reason. So there is a possibility he could get this in 1 catch if he, busts one off. But I'm going to go the under here. And then my other one, I like Lockett, longest reception over 23.5 yards. I think Wilson will really be throwing this ball around on this football team defense.
Yeah, the football team passing defense is pretty bad. One of the worst in the league so far. Oh, yeah. I am tailing Russell Wilson as well. It's also Mr. Unlimited's birthday. Turned 33 today. So, we got that going for us. I got the over 1.5 passing touchdowns. It's his birthday. Football team's a great matchup for him. Playing on Monday Night Football. I think Russ is going to show up for us. He hasn't looked so great recently. I can't even remember the last time he threw 2 passing touchdowns, but I'm banking on it tonight in prime time. All right, let's jump into our Monkey Knife Fight props. If you guys have anything you want us to talk about, please throw it in the chat. Smash the like button, share the video, and follow us on youtube.com/take it to the Hizzy. Let's go. All right, first up here, we got the passing prop between Taylor Heineke and Russell Wilson. Who has more passing yards? And Heineke gets a 5.5-yard passing bonus. Which direction are you going here, Steve?
I'm going to go on Russell Wilson. We just hit on it before that the Washington defense it's not quite there. The 5.5 passing yards just isn't enough for Heineke. So I'm going to go Russell Wilson.
All right, sounds good. I'm going to go Heineke. Wilson in a good spot here. It's a great matchup, but Heineke's turned it on in recent weeks, and Wilson still been kind of trending down since he came back from injury. I'm going to go Heineke here. He's still playing at home, and still also a really good matchup for him going up against the Seattle secondary. All right, next up we have Antonio Gibson versus Alex Collins for total rushing yards in this game. Alex Collins gets a 9.5-yard rushing bonus. Which way you going?
This one's tough with the 9.5 going to Collins. I still think I'm going to lean Gibson just because Collins, he kind of tops out right around like that 40 to 44 yard mark. Don't like Antonio Gibson to get much over that with the 9, but I'll go Gibson here.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going Gibson as well. I just think he's in a much better situation. The football team's rushing offense and defense has been the identity of their team. I expect them to still ground and pound quite a bit tonight, get a fair amount of volume for Antonio Gibson. And he's looked better in recent weeks. Definitely had a slow start to the season. We'll stay right there with Gibson. We're doing Gibson and DK Metcalf on rushing and receiving yards. So Gibson, you're at now 67.5. You like the over or the under?
I'm going to go the under. No running back has put up that number, 68 or more rushing yards on the Seahawks since week 6. That was Najee Harris. Okay. So I'm going to go the under here. I think he's probably sitting at 58 maybe.
I was not aware of that trend, but I'm saying they're due. I'm saying they're due to get hurt. Give me the over 67.5 for Gibson. He's coming off a 95-yard rushing game and the 64 yards the game before that. So he's pretty close, if not well over those marks in recent games. And in his last game, he had 19 carries. The previous game, 24. So I still think that there's a fair amount of volume for him tonight. Metcalf, we're looking at 80.5 receiving yards. I like the under there, and that's just me going on recency bias. Same situation, 31, 26, 43 his last 3 games, just riding that trend. What do you like?
Yeah, I have to take the under here. With what he's been doing lately, it seems like he's just kind of hovering around the 50-yard mark in a lot of his games. I'm just going to play the law of averages. I'm going to go under.
All right, fair enough. All right, those were our Monkey Knife Fight props. If you guys want to jump on Monkey Knife Fight, you can use our promo code to the Hizzy, and they'll match your deposit 100% up to $50. All right, next up we have our game preview for Monday Night Football. We have the Seattle Seahawks coming in as road favorites. The books have made a decision. It's been a pick 'em all day yesterday, all this morning. The books have decided the Seahawks are the favorite. -2.5 on the spread. -135 on the money line. The over-under in this game is at 46.5 points. The Seahawks have only hit the over once this season. Why do I feel like it's going to hit the over, Steve?
I'm in the same boat.
Once. What the hell?
I mean, they just slow people down. I feel like their offense, it even gets stale, and then it translates to the other team. So I guess I can see that, but I like the over tonight.
I do too, but I feel like we're about to lose some more money. What the hell? Fair. 1-8-1. 1-8-1 for the Seahawks on the over this season. I'm not going to bet it. My personal money will not be at stake for the total. That's for sure. With the 1-8-1, I'm going to go with the under. I'm just going to say that they put up 17 to 20. The football team puts up probably somewhat a similar mark. Both get 2 to 3 touchdowns, maybe a field goal apiece. I like the football team here. I picked them earlier today when they were both paying even money. So I am not getting the football team at a plus option. They're currently at plus 115. I really, really like that pick. I still think that they've been the better team recently. Their recent success has definitely been better than the Seahawks, but the NFL, the way it is, this is a week by week type of league right now. I feel like we don't really know who's good. We're just betting on who's going to show up that week. Is there anything or any trends that you're seeing that would lean you one way over the other in this game?
No, this one's all day. I've been looking at this matchup, and it's just split down the middle.
Right.
I think a lot of us would think the Seahawks are a better team than they're playing right now, as they're playing, but they're 3-7, just not very, very good this year. Football team, their highs and lows. I feel like they have a very good week, and then they come and sit out and not play.
Well, it's just like, what team are we going to get? Are we going to get the team that beat, Carolina and Tampa, or are we going to get the team that lost to New Orleans? You know what I mean? But when you look at their losses, pretty good teams. The Chargers, Buffalo, New Orleans, so-so, right? But Kansas City's still a good team. Green Bay, Denver, who is now beating the Cowboys and the Chargers. Their wins, Carolina, Tampa, Atlanta, the Giants. I feel like I put Seattle kind of in those categories. I don't put them in the column with the teams that I said, oh, they lost to that were pretty good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's fair. Maybe not as bad as the Falcons or Giants, but
sure, I agree.
Yeah, just because of quarterback play, I think is where the big difference is there. But yeah, I like the Reds football team tonight. If I was messing with the spread, I'd probably buy it up a half point. Or if you're confident enough, definitely take that money line sitting at a plus number right now. Lose no juice.
I love the money line either direction. Like if you love the Seahawks tonight, great. You probably know something that I don't. I just don't love them traveling either. But actually, both teams are 2-3. Football team 2-3 at home. Seattle 2-3 on the road. That's where they're kind of washed out. But still traveling across country. Time change. The weather's just right. Like the weather's not going to be a big thing because it's just as cold and rainy in Seattle. It's not raining here tonight, but DMV actually had 2 primetime games. We had Ravens last night and the football team tonight.
Yeah,
glad I didn't go to last night. Might be kicking myself for not visiting on this one. We'll see. But I still like the football team here. Like them to win outright, and I will take the under 46.5 points. Are you? Who do you need for tonight? Like, what are you looking for? Is there anything that is going to push you into the win or loss column in fantasy?
As long as Russell Wilson doesn't go off for like 49 points. Actually, 2 different ones. One, Russell Wilson can't go off for 49 points. Feel pretty good about that.
Right.
Got another one, I think 16 points for Russell Wilson. And lately he's been putting up single-digit points. So that one's really up in the air.
Yeah, so I'm starting Heineke, and then I'm going against him, right? So it's kind of like, I don't really care. If I take a win or a loss, or I go 1-1, great. If I somehow go 2-0, I'll wake up really happy. I need DJ Dallas to get it done. He's going to be filling in for Rashad Penny, so I'm hoping he can find an anytime touchdown. We'll see what happens. All right, let's jump into our fantasy waiver wire. First up, found the end zone this week. 3 catches, 4 targets, 102 receiving yards. Desean Jackson, only 5% rostered on Yahoo platforms. Are you buying into D Jackson Black?
I'm not sold on him. He obviously had a really, really good game on Thanksgiving. I just don't know how consistent that's going to be. There were really some big plays that he was able to get a good chunk of his yards on, obviously on 3 catches. So I'm going to pass.
It was really
now.
one big play. I mean, at the end of the day, one really big play.
Yeah, so I'm maybe at most monitoring it just because how depleted they are with, they don't have Ruggs. Waller's been hurt. So, yeah, just monitor it for now.
So he's actually still playing behind, who was it? It was Zay Jones, Renfro. He's playing number 4. Who am I forgetting here?
Edwards.
Yeah, Brian Edwards. So he only played 48% of the snaps on 4 targets. I don't really love that. I mean, in like a really deep league, like 14 teams, he should probably be owned because week in and week out, like the type of waiver guys that you're going to be looking at, he's going to fit right into that type of column. But if you're, in like 10 or 12 league, I think this is definitely more of like a reserve, sit, stay away, because you probably have some depth at receiver on your bench if you've been playing the wire, past couple or handful of weeks or all season, whatever it is, right? So I still think he's kind of a sit and wait, like you mentioned, 5% rostered seems about right. The week prior, I think he had a big play that was blown off. He had it was like a pass interference or something like that, or maybe it was a holding. So they're going to be down in games. Like I still see that being a thing. Like I still see the Raiders being in shootouts. So there's going to be opportunities for him, you're just not going to be able to necessarily pick each week if he's going to go off for these big numbers. He had 14 points in the league that we're looking at here with his stats. And a lot of other leagues, those numbers are inflated because they're receiving yards. This league, it's like 20 yards or 20 yards per point or whatever. So a little bit lower scoring there, but I still think there's opportunity for him in that offense because the Raiders just aren't great. Derek Carr in that offense loves to pass a lot. So I think there is still some upside. Deep leagues, you want to look at this guy. You definitely want to spend some fob on him in 14-team leagues. All right, next up, we've got Kendrick Bourne of the New England Patriots, 23% rostered on Yahoo formats. Hit the prop on him yesterday for over 3.5 catches. He was 5 for 6 for 61 yards and 2 tutties. The Patriots offense is rolling. Mac Jones is looking good. Are you buying in on Kendrick Bourne, Steve?
All in on Kendrick Bourne. I think with Mac Jones' emergence, he seems to be their top guy at wide receiver. As a fantasy owner, you got to know that it's not going to be week in and week out just because Mac Jones still is a rookie and has those low volume passing games. But I think Kendrick Bourne's there, and if you're playing the matchups right, he could definitely be a tool down the stretch for fantasy teams.
He's got 5 touchdowns this season now after yesterday's game. So there's something real here. Hunter Henry and Kendrick Bourne are really the receivers or pass catchers that Mac Jones is looking for, or at least the guys that he's scoring with. Like, obviously, Jacoby Myers isn't a finisher in the red zone. That hasn't been who he is in the NFL, right? N'Keal Harry, it's not going to happen. And then Nelson Aguilar, I don't know what's going on with him. He's actually still getting more snaps than Kendrick Bourne. Kendrick Bourne is playing roughly about half of the snaps, and that might just be the play calling, the operations, what they need on the field for blocking. They've become very run heavy. If you saw my tweet today, Ramondre Stevenson and Dame Harris both are in the top 15 for rushing attempts in the past 4 weeks, and they're exactly the same. 59 apiece across the past 4 weeks. So, Bill is definitely laying into the ground a lot more. And, that's been the focus of the offense. But I still really love the opportunity for Kendrick Bourne here. You look at some of these recent weeks, he's had at least 4 targets for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks. So across that spread, 4 for 4, 4 for 7, 3 for 4, 4 for 4, 4 for 4, 5 for 6. In any league, honestly, 12 or up, I think he's got to be owned. 10, maybe that's a little bit too steep, but I mean, I don't think that you would deny this production any week. You're just putting yourself at risk because you probably have more name brand players on your bench that you may not be willing to risk for Kendrick Bourne. I agree with you. I think he's a slam dunk. Go and pick him up, guys. All right, next up we have a running back tandem. We got Dontrell Hilliard and Donta Foreman. We're in the multiverse. It's crazy. Tennessee Titans running backs, 29% owned Hilliard, 46% owned Donta Foreman. So definitely a little bit less daylight to make on Foreman here. He had 19 carries for 109. Hilliard had 12 for 131. But be mindful, he did have half of that production on 1 carry, but it was for a touchdown. Do you lean any way more than the other between these two guys? And if so, which guy would you prioritize for your fob? Excuse me. And let's say if they're both readily available, would you pick up both of them if you could?
I guess picking up both of them is not a bad idea. I probably lean Donta Foreman just a little bit. I think he'll be the more consistent and the lead guy in this.
Sure.
Hilliard's it's still a small sample size, and I think he had a kind of a costly fumble there towards the end of this game. So, or really when it was starting to get out of reach. Right. But I mean, both of them rushing for 100 yards last week. That Tennessee Titans team, they know how to run. They block because that was their game plan when they had Derrick Henry. So it's very similar to the Niners. They're just a good team that runs the ball very well.
What's up with Mcnichols? Do you know how long his injury is?
No, I do not, and I think I might even have him still on a fantasy team. So I should probably figure that one out.
Pull that up really quick if you can, because I'd like to know if he's going to be back next week, because I feel like that would also play a role into this. Interestingly enough, Donta Foreman is minus 16% ownership in the last day, so people were dropping him, thinking that Hilliard was the guy. Maybe I'm not sure what's up with that. That's an interesting trend. I actually lean towards Hilliard because I would think that he would be more of the pass catching back as well. You saw him have some success on the ground. Mind you, again, half of his production was pretty much on one big run. But Foreman, he's just the kind of up to tackle guy, and he's not, this isn't Derrick Henry at the end of the day. Like, I don't know if that will necessarily be sustainable. I mentioned the Patriots being very good on the ground on offense. They're not so much great on the ground on defense, right? So I do think this was also oriented. I would trust Hilliard more so after the bye up against Jacksonville and Pittsburgh than I would Foreman. That's just me.
Yeah, so it looks like Jeremy Mcnichols, there's obviously hasn't been any decision on next week. He could return, just battling a concussion. It looked like maybe there's a chance he made this Patriots game, but obviously he did not suit up.
Yeah, if it's just a concussion, then I would expect him back soon because they go into a bye. So most likely he'll be back after the bye. So then you have the situation of like, is Hilliard going to be like that third down back now? Is it going to be Mcnichols, or is it really just a combination of all three? Because that's exactly what they did with these two. Foreman had 51% of the snaps and Hilliard had 49. So very split down the middle here. And it just seemed like they wanted to keep fresh legs on the field. And maybe that's the case, because they just have that run set up so well with the play calling and the offensive line, and that is their identity. I certainly didn't enjoy Ryan Tannehill's production this week. That's for certain. I was kicking myself. I was like, man, like I should have started Derek Carr, and then I saw at the end like they finished like within a point of each other. I was like, oh, okay, I guess you'll take it. All right. Next up, another part of a running back committee here, Matt Breida getting it done again. 9 rushing attempts, 26 rushing yards, and I believe he had a receiving touchdown, right?
Yes, he did.
Yeah, and the receiving touchdown. He is still getting out-snapped by Singletary, but he's playing the more meaningful snaps. Singletary seems to be riding out the garbage time, and Breida is just carrying the way through the front end of the game. They sat Zach Moss. He was a healthy scratch. What? I don't know if that's just like a kick in the dick for Moss. Like, hey, buddy, wake up. Like, you're about to lose your job over here. Just some guy that wasn't playing all year long. He was just sitting on the sideline or not even dressing. Like, now he's got your job. I feel like Singletary's next. Like, Singletary hasn't been doing anything with Matt Breida in the game. I think he should be owned. I picked him up in my Scott Fishbowl league. If one of those other guys, Moss or Singletary, were to get hurt, he's the guy. And I know the yardage doesn't look great, but their run game hasn't been good, period, right? I feel like he's the guy in Buffalo to own right now if you're looking for a running back there. What do you think?
Yeah, the offensive line is really what's also killing that Bills team. Just not very good. None of the running backs. I can't believe Breida's been on this list for us now, I think 3 weeks in a row. But no I think movement. It's now, and you got to kind of at this time be like, yeah, it's probably for real. They like what he can add in the passing game. They can roll him out as well as rolling Josh Allen out. Just get some dump offs. So I think it's time to take Breida seriously. And it's a good late season ad that if something happens where he takes over the starting spot altogether, that pays off big.
Because he's on a good team still, you know what I mean? Like, I was talking up Rex Burkhead last week, and really even yesterday, I said he was going to score a touchdown. I mean, realistically, him or David Johnson, I still believe him. Should have found some pay dirt, but whatever. Texans couldn't take care of business up against the Jets. That's on them. That's their own deal. Maybe they're just playing for the draft picks. I don't know. But between the two, like if you're staring at Matt Breida or Rex Burkhead, you should go Matt Breida because he plays on a better team. And if they do get an injury, he's in a very, very good situation. The production's going to go up. The touches are going to go up. So I would definitely prioritize him. Like I said, I picked him up a couple of weeks ago in my Scott Fishbowl league. I didn't start him, the past couple of weeks, but it may be something I have to look at going forward because he seems to have caught the eye of the coaches, coordinator, whatever. He's staying on the field. He's getting more and more work. So definitely something to follow as we get to closer to the end of the season here. Next up, Russell Gage of the Atlanta Falcons, only 17% rostered. He had 7 targets this week, 6 catches, 62 receiving yards, and a touchdown. Pretty solid. The week prior, he had 8 targets for 5 catches, 49 receiving yards, no touchdown, but the volume is there. 3 weeks ago against Dallas, he had three targets, no catches. But even the week before that, again, 8 targets, 7 catches, not a ton of yardage, 64 receiving yards, but the volume has been there. The Falcons are bad. We can get that out plain and simple. But Russ Gage doesn't seem like a bad piece to own.
No, I actually So due to these Thursday games last week, some of my players got locked, so I couldn't drop them. And there's some late people. I think Corey Davis was my guy who he was not healthy to suit up on Sunday. So I was like, okay.
Right.
So I had to decide between do I drop Hunter Henry or to pick up Russell Gage. And I was like, you know what? I like what Hunter Henry does season long, so I'm going to take him. So obviously I whiffed on Gage, but he's there. He's going to see probably you could pencil him in for 6 to 7 targets. He gets a lot of short crossing routes that he'll take up field, just kind of making work that with what Matt Ryan can do. And right now I would say he's the lead guy there aside from Kyle Pitts from game to game.
1,000%, Steve. He leads the receiver room in snap count percentage at 77% the past couple of weeks here. He is getting the most snaps at the receiver position. I mean, obviously, you got Cordell Patterson there that's playing receiver and running back. When he reverts over to receiver, like obviously he's going to probably be the number one target, right? But right now, Russ Gage is getting it done. Honestly, even in 10-team leagues, I think he's worth an ad. Like he's playing a lot. Over 75% of the snap share. There's no competition for touches. They're bad. They're going to be playing from behind. There's going to be volume available. They have a non-existent running game. Like there's a ton of upside here for Russ Gage, only 17% rostered on Yahoo platforms. Irresponsible. Get it taken care of, folks. Get him on your roster. All right, next up, we have a player who is coming off of a bye. Dell Moore of the Arizona Cardinals, coming off an electric game, 11 targets, 11 catches, not so much on the yardage, 51 yards. But I guess this is kind of like a guess or bet, Steve. Do you guess or assume or bet that he's going to continue this level of production if and when Kyler and D-Hop return? Or is it like, all right, bud, we're back. That was cool what you did. Sidelines over there. Which direction you go?
I think it'll really depend on his matchups. Like in week 13 going against the Bears, I personally think he'll have no issue having a good game there. Maybe against the Rams, a little tougher. But then you're seeing a Detroit matchup week 15. I think that's the one where you think he can go off for 2 touchdowns.
Right. See, I don't know. I'm actually not in the boat. Typically with Rondell Moore, I am. Between Rondell and Elijah Moore, I was always Rondell. But with Kyler, I feel like the situation's a little bit different. Like, in these last couple of games, he's been pretty solid, but he hasn't even played a lot. Like in this last game where he had 11 catches on 11 targets, he played 39% of the time. He played behind Christian Kirk. He played behind AJ Green still. And if you have D-Hop coming back, that's going to add another guy there. And Kyler, I feel like, rather than Colt McCoy, he's going to be able to hit his guys. He's going to still find AJ Green where Colt McCoy couldn't. He's still going to find Christian Kirk, ex-roommate. They're kind of buds. They're kind of pals, right? So I still think like this is a guy to definitely obviously own in fantasy. I think he's going to have a nice little career in Arizona for sure. But going forward against with those matchups that you specifically mentioned, like Chicago, the Rams, and Detroit, I feel like some of these other guys are going to get over prioritized because Kyler's back and he can put the ball where it needs to be. Am I making sense?
Yeah, that is definitely a fair argument.
All right, fair enough. We'll kind of leave it at that. And we're just going to jump right into Kyler and D-Hop talk. So kind of nice little segue there. So now we're going to be jumping into Trust or Bust Fantasy Playoff Edition. Do we trust or will these guys bust as our fantasy playoff options? Essentially, do we trust these guys to carry us to victory, carry us to a championship, make the playoffs, whatever it is? So we're going to start with this tandem here in Arizona, Steve. We got Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins. They've been hurt. Both have missed 3 games in a row. I don't know if they're vacationing together, if they're rehabbing together, or what it is, but I need them back, Steve, and I need them back now. They've missed 3 games. They're coming off a bye, so that's 4 weeks of football right now in fantasy that we're missing. Literally almost a quarter of our season. Are these guys going to get it done? When you're looking at the playoffs, traditional 15, 16, and 17 weeks, you're looking at Detroit on the road in Detroit. Not really worried there. Indianapolis at home and Dallas on the road. Trust or bust, we're putting them together here. We're going to say they're a group package. What do you think?
Because see, that's tough because I think DeAndre Hopkins down the stretch will be just fine. I think he'll be fully rested, and he's still one of the top receivers in the league. So I like him to get it done. Kyler Murray, though, I don't think I could say the same for him. I think with his injuries that he's going to be very limited with what he can do with his legs, which is a huge part of his value and what I loved all of last year and then earlier this year.
Right.
I'm not sold on Kyler Murray.
I would be the other way around. I would assume like if they both come back, well, I guess I would bet that Kyler would come back and that they wouldn't rush D-Hop if anything, because without Kyler, they have nothing. Like they are not a playoff team without Kyler, in my opinion. And if D-Hop comes back and he's just got Colt McCoy, well, for example, let's say it's the Indianapolis game. Colt McCoy's quarterback. DeAndre Hopkins is healthy. No Kyler. Who would you start, DeAndre Hopkins or Hunter Renfrow? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's a tough decision. It's your playoffs. You could be fighting to either get in. You could be fighting to make it to the next round. It could be your championship. I would start Renfrow. I really would. If you just look at the volume that D-Hop had with Kyler in the lineup. It's not there. The touchdowns are there. That's where the real value is at with D-Hop, is those touchdowns. But you get a guy like Colt McCoy in there with him in the red zone, and that corner end zone target might turn into an interception.
Yeah, I guess I probably would go Hunter Renfrow. I've really liked what he's done recently. He's just a PPR machine.
Volume, baby. It's all cash.
Yeah. So I think that would maybe be why I would lean Renfrow. I'm still not – I think Hopkins could get the job done with McCoy. I think he's that good of a receiver, and McCoy hasn't been bad in the games that he's had to substitute in for.
Right.
So, yeah, for me, I still like D-Hop.
I get it. You look at D-Hop and you see what he did with the quarterbacks that he had in Houston. I totally understand. I can sympathize with that. So that does make sense to me. All right, let's move on here. Next up, we're looking at Calvin Ridley. I mean, we need a sign of life.
Yeah, I don't think this one's going to be anything for anyone for the rest of the year. It seems like he'll be out for the season.
All signs for me point to bust here for Calvin Ridley. And that's not to say that he's going to be a bust going forward, but what does he have to come back to right now? This team is bad. Even if he does come back, like I'm watching Matt Ryan miss Mike Davis wide open in the flat, overthrowing him by 10 yards when he's wide open. There's no defender around him. Ball's going the wrong way. I don't trust Matt Ryan is the issue. I really don't know if anyone other than Cordell Patterson on the Falcons is a league winner right now. Maybe it could be Russ Gage, if they can keep that up. I think that's possible. But I feel like he's the only guy that, kind of separates himself on that roster, at least right now. And until we get any indication of life on Calvin Ridley, I would assume that his season is over and then he is not coming back this year. I hope I'm wrong. I have plenty of shares of him. I'd love to have him back in my fantasy lineup, but he's a great player to watch. I mean, and I get it, going through some mental stuff, but man, when I'm going through mental stuff, money helps a lot. I'm just saying, I was like, go buy me an ice cream. I'm a little sad today. I'm going to go watch a movie by myself. Money helps me do these things. Calvin Ridley makes a lot more. I'm sure he could be a lot more creative with the money he would make with his game checks, but yeah, hopefully he just gets right. No sign of life right now. I'm going to say he's probably a bust for the fantasy playoffs. I don't expect him coming back. Been kind of hearing tidbits, the past couple of days on the news wire, like, oh, hey, he's able to come back now, but nothing from the coach, nothing from him. So I'm not betting on it.
Yeah, I think earlier today, Arthur Smith came out, said he had no update. He wasn't even going to take a guess at a date. If I was the Falcons, I'd just say, take all the time you need right now. We're obviously not good this year, and you want to have him all of next year. So let him, clean up whatever he's got to clean up, and then go from there next year.
Well, what about next year? Should he move on? I think they're hurting his brain. I think they're causing the problems. I mean, if you saw some of these passes that Matt Ryan was throwing, you might have some mental issues too. I shouldn't say mental issues, just, anxiety, whatever. I'd have anxiety if Matt Ryan was throwing me the ball.
Yeah, and I'm sure Calvin Ridley, coming from Alabama and beyond that, he just always wants to perform at a high level, and when he can, I'm sure it takes a toll on him because he's not used to it, and he's a hell of a player. So moving on would probably be best for him. I don't know how willing the Falcons would be on it, but I guess anymore it kind of seems like anyone can drive their way out of anywhere if they want to.
The Falcons should move him to move up a draft pick for sure and get themselves established at the quarterback position, in my opinion.
Yeah. Tough when it's just a really weak quarterback draft this year. But you got when your quarterback's when he's 35, Matt Ryan's 35. Yeah, you probably got to start throwing some darts in the QB direction.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, next up we've got Aaron Jones. Came back in this last game, had 10 carries, 23 yards. They obviously didn't overuse him. Seems like he'll be fine. Seems like he'll be fine going forward. After the bye, I would expect a normal workload. But do we get that same Aaron Jones? It was an MCL sprain. He's got some decent matchups. Week 15, you're looking at Baltimore and Cleveland week 16, Minnesota week 17. Those aren't terrible. Cleveland, you look at that and you kind of, look back at last night and go, oh no, that might be trouble. But it's the Packers. I think they'd be able to handle business, and they're at home in that game. Also a Saturday game. Interesting. Okay. That's Christmas. Hey, right on. Christmas football. I forgot. That's awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So Aaron Jones, trust or bust in your fantasy playoffs. What do you think?
I think fantasy playoffs is going to be a little tough. I think Packers are going to want him to be fully healthy when the playoffs come. And I think the emergence of A.J. Dillon, he does just fine in there. I do think he'll return to a semi-regular workload, but I think it'll be slightly dinged with how good Dillon's been in there. And they'd rather have both of them healthy in their actual playoffs. So I still think he'll be able to be a flex, sneak into RB2 from time to time. But I don't think he'll be putting up the RB1 numbers like we saw at the very beginning of the season.
I agree. So I'll ask you this one. This is I actually have this. I have these two exact players, Eli Mitchell or Aaron Jones, going forward. If you were looking at weeks 15 through 17, I go Elijah.
Yeah, I would probably too. I like the Niners are just a running team. His is only a broken finger, so I don't really think that's going to be too much of an issue for him. Yeah, I probably would too. And because there's not anyone really behind him that's biting at his heels for that job, whereas like A.J. Dillon, I think, does an adequate job to where he could easily be seeing half the touches that Jones does.
Okay. I'll make it a little harder then. How about Aaron Jones versus Javonte Williams?
I'm going to go Aaron Jones just because he plays for a better team that's going to be in it down the stretch, and they'll call on him. Javonte Williams, it just doesn't do it for me.
I would probably lean Javonte Williams there. He's been pretty electric. Like his burst is A1. What about Aaron Jones versus Myles Gaskin? We'll do the last one on that.
Oh man, I'll go Aaron Jones just because we haven't really seen what Lindsey's if it will eat into Gaskin, and Gaskin is all over the place with his output.
All right, fair enough. All right, moving on. I would go probably Myles Gaskin over Jones the way it looks right now. I'm going to say that Jones is probably a bust as well if I didn't already clarify that. All right, next up, Josh Allen. Coming off a great performance, but he still threw 2 interceptions. He has had 2, 4, 5, 7 interceptions in his last 4 games. Although he has had 8 passing touchdowns across the same stretch. Not great since one of those games he didn't throw a single one. But what do you think about Josh Allen in the fantasy playoffs? He's getting Carolina, New England, Atlanta. 2 out of those 3 matchups are not ideal, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't love it with Carolina and New England. Carolina, though, they've just looked downright awful. So I don't know how afraid of them I would be if I'm Josh Allen. I wouldn't say I'm in love with him going forward, but I do think he would do enough to win you a championship. I don't think he personally would be win you the championship, but he'll do you enough to keep you right in the mix.
Right. Yeah, I don't think he is necessarily the home run that we thought he was going to be, especially across this last stretch here. He's got to figure out the deep ball, and he's got some tough matchups. So even just getting into your playoffs, New England week 13, at Tampa, week 14. That's a good matchup for the secondary, but man, he's going to be under fire in that game. The offensive line is bad. They haven't established the run all season long. Everyone says, oh, well, Josh Allen's their running back one. Well, yeah, but it's not going to be great when you're going up against Tampa and they're bringing the Haas every damn play. Like, come on. That's going to be tough. In Carolina, it'll be a good matchup, I think, but at least on paper, what we've seen the past couple of weeks. But I feel like Carolina is a team that could just show up. They could just show up that week. Oh, it's the Bills. It's time to show up. They didn't show up this week because it was the Dolphins. They didn't show up last week because it was the football team. And they're like, oh, the Bills. Well, now we're going to play good. Cam's got us all riled up. Got us barking at each other. We're calling each other dogs. I don't know. It's tough. It's tough. But I don't love his schedule going down the stretch. If you have someone, on your bench that you've kind of carried with him throughout the season in like a single quarterback league, I would be interested in looking at those matchups. I would definitely be trying to see like, hey, this team's playing Houston. Let's start that guy, or you know what I mean. Like if you have like an overwhelming positive matchup, I'd probably lean away from Allen in some of these games. All right, a couple more here. Next up, we've got Alvin Kamara. Sounds like he could be back this week. He's missed the last 3 games. And before heading out, he was on a pretty solid run, had 3 touchdowns out of his 4 previous games on the ground. Coming back, he's going to have Dallas, the Jets, pretty solid matchups. Does have Tampa Bay in there. But closing it out with Miami and Carolina in your fantasy playoffs, those are pretty good matchups. Do we trust Kamara with the Saints, with Simeon for the rest of the go here?
Yeah, I gotta say I love Kamara just because they don't have anyone at receiver. He can really be their entire offense. He draws great, Traquan. He draws great matchups, and I think they've held him out enough that he'll be nearly 100% ready to go. So I love Kamara. I think he could be a home run down the stretch, especially with a Miami week 16.
Yeah, I do too. I think these are great matchups. I think the situation is going to be good for him. Football team just ended their first drive. I think the situation is going to be good for him. They'll probably be I would assume for a bit they would try to chase the division, but I don't know, or a wild card spot. I don't know where they're at with their record. But yeah, I would expect him still to play quite a bit down the stretch here. The production's always been solid. He's been getting a ton of carries this last go when he was healthy. So I think he's definitely a trust. The production hasn't spoken loudly enough to say like, oh, you're walking home with a ring, you're walking home with a belt. But I think he can get you there. I don't think this is going to be the year where he puts up 50 in the finals. I don't think it's like something like that's going to happen, but I think he's definitely going to be on some championship rosters this year. All right, we got 2 more left here. Second to last one, we got DJ Moore, who surprisingly has been solid. Like DJ Moore is consistently getting targets. I mean, obviously the production has come down because of the inconsistent play at quarterback, but he had 100 receiving yards this week. And if you watch that game, you'd be like, who had 100 receiving yards? Not anyone on the Panthers. No, DJ Moore, he still had it done. Needed 10 targets. That does not look good. Cam did have to be taken out of that game. I don't believe it was for injury. They just brought in Walker because Cam just could not hit anybody. He did hit DJ Moore for a huge gainer. I think it was like 60+ yards, and he got within 64. The red zone. He was close. He was close from finishing that one, but couldn't quite get to pay dirt. I trust him. I honestly, like whoever's there, he's going to be in your lineup. It's really just, is he going to find the end zone to really make his week?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got some shares at DJ Moore, and it's been tough. He's obviously the lead guy on that Carolina team. Robbie Anderson doesn't seem to be any help to him. The quarterback play is what just scares me the most. They took out Cam, put in PJ Walker, who then continued to throw, and I believe an interception on his first drive in. So that's going to be the biggest thing for him. But I think he's consistent enough that, especially in PPR leagues, you can slot him in for double-digit points. Not a home run at all, but he could be a good flex for you.
Yeah. I agree. I think honestly, I think he's one of my starting receivers. Given whatever the matchup is, I think he's going to be in there every week just based off of that potential volume. He hasn't had less than 7 targets in any game this season. Like, you know what I mean? Like he's had double digits I think more games than not. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games. So in half of the games he's played this season, he's had double-digit targets. He's always got to be in your lineup. Absolutely, every week. All that volume, it should land you in the end zone eventually. I think he at least scores probably twice in the fantasy playoffs in the end zone. Matchups were, I don't have them all scrolled down. Let's see. There was Buffalo and Atlanta in weeks 14 and 15. I don't have beyond 15. All right. Next up and lastly, we have Mike Williams. Quite the enigma this season, Mike Williams. Coming off, okay game. 4 catches, 8 targets. You like to hear that, but the yards were not there. Only 39 receiving yards. Game before that, a nice one, 97 receiving yards, a tutty, 5 catches, 6 targets. Like the volume's there. 5+ targets in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games, 7 games. Like he even had a 16 target game where he had 2 receiving touchdowns. He's had these big opportunities, some of these big play games, but Steve, are they going to come in the playoffs?
I think he's going to be real hit or miss in the playoffs. Obviously, the Chargers know that he's one of the biggest keys to their success. If you look at the games where he's really went off, that's the games that they win. They've hit a skid lately because they haven't been able to get him involved. I think even Keenan Allen came out and said that for them to be successful, we need to get Mike Williams the ball. And that's telling if another receiver, is even
Keenan
saying
Allen.
that.
If Keenan Allen is saying it, Target Hog, Keenan Allen is saying it, you need to perk up your fucking ears and listen. Are you kidding me? They were using him all over the field. We were talking about that early on in the season, how they were using him on the left, right, in the slot, like having him cut across, having him go down the field. He was doing everything. I feel like that's kind of gone by the wayside now. Am I wrong in that?
No, you're exactly right. I mean, they were running him on slants opposed to the jump ball that they were always giving him in years past, and he was very successful with it. And whether it be maybe some teams were able to game plan a little bit better for him, but he's a good enough talent that you can overcome the other team's game plan more than where they have. But maybe it's just a skid of the entire team, entire offense not performing right. So I do think with the matchups Mike Williams has in the fantasy playoffs, you can roll the dice with him. But there will also probably be some ugly games where he's putting up, maybe 3 catches for 40 yards.
Man, I really hope that's not the case. I'm going to need him to go to work for me in the fantasy playoffs. I'll be starting him every week in the fantasy playoffs. I've been dealing with some injuries. Lost me some Robert Woods, not cool. Deandre Hopkins, not cool. Come back, D-Hop. Come back. Please come back. Yeah, the Giants and KC in weeks 14 and 15. Again, I don't have beyond that, but I think those are 2 really good matchups. And he put a big dent into the Kansas City Chiefs earlier this season with 122 receiving yards, 2 tutties, and 7 catches. So I think there could be something there for him. Could be something there. All right, that is our last segment. We're going to do just a little live betting. We had a couple of drives here. Both teams going 3 and out. 12:29 left in the first here, Steve. We got the total down to 45 even. What are you thinking?
I was going to say, I think I'm already switching my page. It's only moved a point and in my direction, but I'm going to probably take the under.
Yeah. Bastards. It's going to be one of those games, as long as it's not the Browns and the Ravens. I don't know why I stayed up and why I watched that game. And then after that, my wife was just like, I don't know why you watched that. That wasn't interesting. Like at all. Like, why did you do that? And I said, I don't know. Like, I'm dumb. I'm addicted. I have a problem. My blood's itching. More football. You know what I'm saying? And she's like, well, can we watch a show? It's like super late. And I'm like, fuck it. I get it. I watched it too. I understand. Like, you brave woman sitting here and watching this game with me. To be fair, she slept through the first half, but I get that too. All right. You got anything else before we head out?
No, check us out on Friday for NBA.
I was gonna say, like, man, we should change like our dress code so that we could have casual Friday, but I don't know what we would wear that Friday would be casual. You want to start wearing suits?
I gotta bust my suit out if I'm gonna do that. I gotta make sure it still fits.
Oh, I'd have to take mine to the dry cleaners for sure. Like, I haven't had to wear a suit in a long time. Like, hopefully no one dies anytime soon because I'm gonna have to go buy a new suit. But was thinking about that. I was like, man, casual Friday would be cool. We got the B-ball, it's end of the week. But then we got to be serious all the rest of the time. I don't know. Something food for thought. Food for thought. You're gonna be here Friday though. You're
Yes,
good.
sir.
I know we're gonna be missing you next week.
Yes. Yep. I will be here on Friday.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, we'll be back on Friday with fantasy basketball. I'll be back tomorrow night with fantasy hockey. Take care, be well. Hopefully you guys hit some winners tonight. Be good, and if you can't be good at it. We'll see you.